Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first Classic WoW with Mao podcast featuring the Masterminds. I am your host, Mao, and I play a little bit of Fury Warrior in Classic WoW with some Frost Mage on the side. I'm a lifelong gamer who started playing MMOs in the EverQuest era and moved on to Final Fantasy XI and then eventually World of Warcraft. From 2005 to 2008, I held what I would call my dream college job, working at Blizzard Entertainment as a GM in Vanilla WoW. It was an amazing experience. I also spent time in the quality control department during Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King before I moved on, but I never moved on from my love of Blizzard and Blizzard games, and especially this edition of World of Warcraft. Love Classic, but enough about me. Let's introduce the Masterminds, starting with our co-host, Mythoclast.
Hi, I'm Myth, Mythoclast, Myth for short. I'm the main tank of Mastermind, and I've been, playing WoW off and on for the last 15 years in both retail and classic editions. I pretty much have played everything, but enjoy tanking the most. Let's go ahead and introduce some of our other guests here today. We have Candice, a shaman that raised with us as well.
Hello, name's Can. I've been playing WoW for basically since it came out. I play everything, but just playing Hunter and Shaman right now.
I'm Copistar. I Dagger Rogue for Mastermind. Started playing WoW on the first open beta. Played up until right at the release of Cataclysm. I've played almost every MMORPG that's been out, but I'll always come back to WoW.
And I believe we also have our priest, Micaiah, in the group as well today. Micaiah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, that was my bad. I was hitting the wrong button.
All good, man.
I've been playing WoW since vanilla. I played a priest then. I play a priest now. I heal for Mastermind. But I've been gaming since I was young, and I've got platforming, shooters, everything under the sun under my belt.
Very, very cool. I played a little bit of Priest myself during Vanilla. Awesome class. Loved it. And always appreciate when those priests are stacking up in the raid. So, very cool. So, we are here today. Phase 2 has just recently come out. The World of Warcraft has changed a lot over the last few days, for sure. No doubt about that. But really, before we even get to Phase 2, how did everybody do in Phase 1? Were you happy with your Phase 1? Did you accomplish your goals? What were you hoping to do? What didn't get done with the... I think a lot of people felt the early announcement of Phase 2 maybe came on a little bit quicker than a lot of people think.
Well, to start, sort of not necessarily just to toot my own horn, but I did get both bindings, which was kind of my goal. Having both of those going in.
Huge congratulations. Very emotional moment in the Mastermind Discord at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, it's really nice to have both going into whenever Phase 3 actually launches. But that was really my main goal. I actually sort of expected Phase 2 to come early, unlike a lot of the people that we play with. I don't know. I don't think that the Blizzard's planning to take the amount of time that everyone else was thinking in rolling these phases out.
Yeah, I was definitely in that group that thought 3 months at least, but I was surprised it was a little bit shorter than that.
So I kind of got everything I wanted done in Phase 1, except for my Hunter. So I came up 2 levels short from 60 by the time ranks released, but I got a Shaman to 60, and I got almost 2 characters to 60 leveled, and PvP made those last 2 levels very interesting. Pretty much leveled through dungeons.
Yeah, we grouped up a lot on the way up. I got my mage to 60 right before that cutoff, and man, I was feeling bad for you during those last 2 levels, man.
It was pretty rough, but it's a good thing that there are some end game dungeons with a lot of quests, or else this Hunter would still not be 60.
Yeah, I can't think of a single place that's safe out in the open world right now.
I imagine pretty much every server that's PvP server is going through this right now. I mean, it's brutal out there, and there's some people that I know that we got the full honor from on their way to their dungeon, so very rough. How about you, Micaiah? How's Phase 1 wrapped up for you, and how's Phase 2 been so far?
Phase 1's been pretty good. I'm 6 of 8 in Prophecy. I have my Transcendence Helm. I have Benediction, so I'm basically sitting pretty until Blackwing Lair comes out. And I haven't really touched Phase 2 right now. I'm kind of waiting for everything to blow over before I start trying to get out into the world.
Yeah, it's definitely been an exercise in patience, just trying to get anywhere that you want to go, unless you're rolling with a big group right now. I can definitely say for Phase 1, I was happy. My main goal was just to farm a lot. I got my Lionheart Helm mats from farming. I got myself some Black Lotuses to go into Phase 2 and 3. And the main big adjustment that I made is I was very bent on going engineering at the start of Phase 2. But I actually kept my gathers because with all this world PvP, I've been running into Lotuses, rich thorium veins while killing people. It's kind of turned the farming and the PvPing together, and I'm going to hold off on that Engie just a little bit longer, but it's getting rough because I definitely want some of that stuff that's in there.
Yeah, it really helps. Yeah, man, I've accomplished everything I wanted out of Phase 1. Really, when I was younger and I wasn't really committed enough to be in like a raiding guild. So I always kind of saw those rogues, you know, with Perdition's Blade and Night Slayer, and I was like, God, man, like, I want to be that guy. That guy's so badass. And now I've done that. I have my Perdition's Blade. I'm sitting pretty for a long time. Lucky enough to get it the day before P2 dropped. That was the icing on the cake.
And that was another pretty sweet drop right there. Always going into the PvP phase, you're hoping to get that weapon. I haven't gotten my weapon yet, but I've been doing all right out in the world. I think I have a strong enough pieces otherwhere, you know, on the other spots that it's been working out okay. And we've had a good group rolling around, so it's been fun. Plus, the Horde community, I feel, has really come alive in this phase on our server. I'm sure every server has a little bit different dynamic, but there was definitely this feeling on our server that maybe the Horde was not going to come to play for PvP, and I don't necessarily think that's been the case. We've shown up.
I agree. I think that Horde community is actually completely dominating our server right now for the most part, except for like one zone at a time. Because everywhere you go, it's just Horde rolling around, but like there's one zone up at a time that ally own, and it makes for interesting bits because like you'll be running around not finding anyone, and you'll change a zone and get farmed.
Yeah, and it's a very quick dynamic change too, because those groups come in and they go pretty quickly, and you don't really quite know when they're going to be sticking around and camping or when they're just you're a speed bump along the way. So definitely has happened a little bit. So with that being said, we're into Phase 2. World PvP has been absolutely crazy here. If you're listening to this podcast, you catch this on YouTube, let us know how World PvP has been on your server. Has it been Horde dominated? Has it been Alliance dominated? Have you been racking in the honor? Have you been staying in the dungeons? What's been your strategy for dealing with that? How about all of you guys? Have you been PvPing? Have you been avoiding it? What's been the case?
I've delved head deep into it. That's all I'm doing, just PvPing. I mean, I'd like to push for a high rank, but this is what I came mostly for WoW to, is the PvP. I think it has some of the best PvP as far as MMORPGs.
I've been enjoying the PvP and also like dreading it. As a warrior, a lot of the bigger group skirmishes are really hard to handle because it's so focused on like massive ranged combat that charging in really just gets me killed a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I've actually, the most enjoyment I've had has been really small group PvP so far. Me and a couple of friends of mine, two other guildies the other day, were in just a 3-man group, and we were effectively just preventing 5-person groups from getting into Dire Maul, and it was so much fun. Like 3v5ing alliance groups and just camping them outside of the instances.
I agree with Mao. PvP is just a lot more fun in a small group, especially with guildmates all in Discord. It just kind of really, when you start having to start making your call outs, which targets, switching targets, I find that a lot more fun than just like death balls of tar and mill,
Sure. I think that this phase has added a lot to do, and it's very enjoyable if you're looking to PvP. But if you're not, if you're like me, who was still trying to get 2 levels on an alt when this phase launched, the game just literally became run back to your body simulator.
Well,
and you do it a lot.
Yeah, and one of the things you got to remember too is, not even everybody is on their alt even. So like some of these people are on their mains, and it's rough. It's getting to the point where the enjoyment level for a lot of people went up, but I definitely think it went down for a section of the community. And I think that really asks the question, are Battlegrounds coming early? Are they coming sooner than we think they are? Are they even going to still be coming with Phase 3? That's kind of what I'm interested in now, because we are already seeing a complete dynamic change with what's happened in Azeroth.
Yeah, so the same way that we saw Dire Maul get released very early before Phase 2, I actually expect at least Warsong Gulch to be an early arrival. I'd be kind of surprised if we don't have Warsong Gulch before Christmas, just because, yeah, anybody who doesn't actually have like a max level character at this point is going to be pretty turned off from playing Classic. I think I agree. It's really bad for lower level characters. And it's not anything you can do about it, except give the people who really want to hardcore PvP grind an avenue to do that gets them out of the real world a little bit.
And this is sort of what brought Battlegrounds along initially in vanilla at the time that it did, because World PvP was always pretty rowdy, I would say, at the release of Vanilla WoW. And when the honor system rolled out, it did the same thing that it did now, which is it turned everybody into absolutely bloodthirsty, honor-hungry characters. And any sort of ethics about letting someone buy are completely out the window, and it does get to the point where you have to do something about it and at least temper a little bit of this. You want there to be dynamic PvP, but at the point where it incentivizes people to be in situations where they never die and all of that isn't necessarily good for the world either.
Yeah, I've actually been avoiding it, like I said earlier, but I feel bad for people who are 60 and just aren't geared because they just can't stand up to the people who've been raiding since the first week of the release of Classic.
I think that's a point, but I think it's less of one than you would assume. There is my hunter is fresh 60, and I can kill people that are raid geared on my hunter. It's really class over gear at this point, I believe, for a lot of.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to really start seeing gear play so much of a difference until BWL is going to be a part of that. The ranking gear is going to be a part of that. And then obviously AQ and Nax coming after that is going to really just blow that divide open. But at least with Molten Core gear, I do feel like it's closer field than it could be. And some of the dungeon gear is actually better in certain situations. Itemization has changed a lot since vanilla, and it's no longer just stack all your epics, There's a little bit more math that's been figured out since then.
Well, it's not even just that though. Like coming back around to low level characters having a bad time. As part of the 3-person group when we were PvPing, yes, if we're focusing on getting maximum honor, we're killing level 52 people, and they stand no chance. It doesn't matter what class they're playing; they're just going to die. And again, I would expect that there's actually probably going to be a pretty sharp drop off of players over the next month or so that aren't the ones actively PvPing.
Yeah, the incentive to be logged in all the time goes a lot with the honor at this point, and if you're not a part of that and you don't have any interest in that, you kind of don't want to be in that mix at all. So there is definitely going to need to be something addressed to that, and given what happened with Dire Maul, I do think that Battlegrounds early. I almost wonder if it's going to be Alterac Valley, though, instead of Warsong Gulch. I feel like Alterac Valley has some of the grindable items that are going to level the playing field, and it's a large-scale battlefield, although I love Warsong, so I'm hoping for Warsong.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely benefits to both.
Alterac, if they were to release it that way, it would be a really good way to get all the 51 to 60 players out of the open world and kind of give them a little playground to play in. So, you know, the people still trying to level would have that opportunity now, because I mean, me personally, if someone's like, do you want to do world PvP or do you want to go do Alterac Valley? I want to do Alterac Valley. Alterac Valley's super fun. It's one of my favorite, you know, PvP areas.
Yeah, so I agree with Kyle. If they're trying to remove people from the open world environment in order to promote leveling, that Warsong Gulch does not solve the issue as much as Alterac. Alterac takes 40 at a time out of the economy, whereas Warsong, like, a really quick thing that people are just going to queue in groups of 10 over and over.
Is that there's actually quests in there that you can level off of. There's mobs that you can kill in there, so there's kind of a reason to be there if you're not level 60 even, and the rewards that you get from there are very substantial. You know, as a warrior who would like to get a better weapon, I'm looking at the Unstoppable Force going, I can grind that out and be in some really good shape, you know, after that. So there's some incentive to put that out. Now, of course, in vanilla, Warsong and Alterac Valley came together, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's how it's going to be in Classic.
Yeah, there are several like best in slot pieces that would come with Alterac Valley too. I think there's an offhand with like 53 or 56 healing. There's the Don Julio's ring, which is I think best in slot for all melee until BWL.
Yes, yeah. There's very good gear out of Alterac. That might be another avenue, just to allow people to grind something with a goal other than people.
Don't they have the trinkets as well?
I mean, the trinkets are just mediocre. It's like frost resist and HP regen.
Well, I meant for like PvP sections, not PvE.
I mean, all the PvP vendors, they have the trinkets out right now. Next week, people will be able to buy them.
Yeah, I think most players that even registered kills for this week should be hitting rank 2 next week. It doesn't really take that many from what I remember. If you want to get rank 3 or 4, it's a little bit more work, but most people should be able to get their PvP trinkets by next week.
I'm actually still really curious too, because I don't think there's been a confirmation on whether or not the good blue gear is coming out, is already out right now. We'll be able to see once people can actually zone into the honor instances inside of the capitals. Like once we have someone who's, I think, is it rank 5 or 6 that you can zone in there? Yeah,
because you had to be a knight on the alliance side to get into it.
Yeah, so I think that's a blood guard equivalent. No, that's a stone guard. No, I don't remember. But once we have someone who's rank 6 who can zone in there, we can actually see whether or not the blue gear is there, because if it is, I mean, rank 10 is pretty obtainable without really having to grind, and that gear is like better than most dungeon gear for basically every class.
Yeah, there's at least one piece per set that has like some hit rating and damage, which is like what everyone wants.
It's funny, I don't necessarily think their intention was to make a bunch of great PvE gear, but just the way the game has evolved, the PvP gear is really amazing PvE gear. Part of the grind for me is just thinking like, you know, those axes are going to do a lot of damage in a raid down the road if I can get them, so there's a lot of incentive for PvE players to engage themselves, and Battlegrounds would also do a lot of good for bringing some of those players in and getting them to fill out those sets that they want. So
the thing that, I don't know, like I said, I'm really interested in Battlegrounds coming out because I do like the idea of pushing rank. I don't like the chaos of world PvP as much as some other people do. I liked it a lot more back when I first played Classic because my first main of all time was a rogue. So being able to appear and make people's lives miserable was always very fun. But I just love coordinated, challenging Warsong Gulches. It's just basically the most fun aspect of Classic WoW to me.
The competitive aspect of the game really drives a lot of what I feel is some of the most fun moments that you're going to have. When you get an evenly matched group and you have to really use all your guile. When you have to retaliate, you have to come up with a plan how to wipe the people that wiped you, is really some of the most satisfying moments that you can have in Classic. And Warsong, Alterac Valley to a certain degree, although it does get a little zergy, and definitely Arathi Basin brought on some of the best hardcore PvP moments that this game is going to see. It's harder to cultivate those moments out in the open world. It is fun, though, to have those moments happen spontaneously. One of the things that I loved about this phase in vanilla, I was still a priest leveling up. I didn't even care that I was getting killed because I was happy to join in the action and heal people and fear people. It is cool to watch some of these skirmishes snowball into big little wars that right before your eyes.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the ebb and flow. It's like I've spent most of the time in Blackrock, and it's just interesting to see. You'll see a group of 10 Alliance roaming around ganking everyone, and then the Horde brings in 15, and then the Alliance brings in 20. Next thing you know, you've got these two big death balls throwing at each other.
Right, and then one takes over the mountain, so then one's defending the mountain and trying to keep everybody out, and it's almost like Battlegrounds, but amongst the world, if you kind of look at it from an abstract way, which is kind of fun, but definitely less organized and less fair.
Well, I think one of the even bigger benefits that you haven't mentioned about organized PvP in these battlegrounds is getting to know your server.
Yeah.
One of the things that I remember most fondly about actually playing in vanilla is when you queue into the other faction's group and you know those players because you've played against them so many times, it makes the competition that much better.
Some of the best moments that we had in vanilla were going up against a group that we hated them because we respected them because they gave us a hard run every time, and it got emotional sometimes, it got salty sometimes, but those are kind of the moments that we're hoping to get in terms of that competition. You want to go up against squads that are going to make you sweat a little bit and really test your guile, and that's so this is the big thing. Are we going to be seeing, I believe cross-realm battlegrounds are going to be happening right from the start, and there are a lot more realms than were originally put in the plan. So it's going to be kind of few and far between, I think, when you actually see people from your server. It's almost going to hype those matches up a little bit more.
I would really hope they don't do cross-server battlegrounds just because of how, Myth was. It's
I don't
fun
think they
to
will.
build those rivalries, like when you queue up and press tab, see what's going on, and you're like, oh man, we're against so-and-so guild again. Like, all right, boys, it's time to put your try-hard pants on. This isn't going to just be a walk in the park. We're going to actually have to really focus and coordinate our attack.
It might be different now because back when cross-round battlegrounds was first introduced, it basically made it so that if the other faction got tired of playing, you were just done for the night, whereas with cross-realm you could actually keep going even though you weren't playing people from your realm.
Right, well, this is what my guild ran into back in vanilla, and it worked in our favor to a degree, but it was also very frustrating. There was many more Alliance on the server than Horde, and we were really the only Horde guild that was PvPing at a high level. So we were winning all of our matches, but we were getting 2-hour queues or hour-long queues, and then when they saw us, they would duck the fight. So we would go through long stretches of not being able to play because there wasn't cross-faction, and then when it got introduced, we got a lot more matches and everything, but the good battles that we had were amazing, and they were against people that we knew, and we had a good match. They'd be in our Ventrilo server there later yelling at us and everything, so it was fun.
So I guess there's two sides of that could be beneficial, because I also remember 45-minute Warsong queues in groups of 10 people. It's always nice to run into, hey, this is Mythoclast high warlord push. Like it's one person is always pushing at a time. And one of the things that I think Classic is missing, and I think Blizzard will eventually release this, is the the honor rankings on a website. Like, you used to be able to look at like server honor rankings on World of Warcraft's website, and it was important to notice who was close to getting high warlord, who ranked each week. and it was also important on like just noticing who was pushing. But I could also see if they did battle groups, at least allowing like a little bit more of a battle group community. Because even when cross servers came out in Burning Crusade, I think they first came out in Burning Crusade. I remember still knowing some of the groups we were PvPing against, like the big I played originally on Ice Crown, and one of the bigger servers on our battle group was Kel'Thuzad, so we knew several of the big PvP groups from Kel'Thuzad when we queued into them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Crossroad came out before BC because we were on our Twinks playing, and that's when we started getting queues even after we beat the Horde so bad that they never wanted to come.
Right, it definitely was a vanilla thing. It happened later, and since we're on patch 112, I assume that it's going to be coming with Battlegrounds, but I'm not 100% sure on that. They may have even said something. If anybody can verify whether there's been a blue post about it, that'd be awesome. But in Classic, so we'll have to see how that all plays out, or whether everybody in Classic is just a part of the whole group. You know, maybe they're not going to do battle groups for Classic and it's just everybody else against everybody.
So I think one huge difference between Classic and Vanilla is that we have to remember that these servers are 10 times the size.
This is
So there's not a reason for battle groups to emerge.
I just looked it up, and Blizzard has confirmed there will be cross-realm battlegrounds when VGs go live in phase.
Okay, yeah, that's what I remember reading, but it's been a little while, so I wanted to make sure that...
It just makes sense from a imbalanced factions perspective to put out Crossroad Battleground.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now saying I think that Horde would be in for long queues on our server, personally.
Hopefully at least then maybe there's like a weighted system where it's more likely that like larger groups will queue into larger groups from their own server.
I would like to see that. I would also just like to see group versus group is a lot better than group versus pug in most cases. And
It'd be nice if they just gave a an option to turn off cross realm, like either group faces another group from your realm, or you just face people from your realm. So
that would actually be a cool idea. Like if you are willing to wait in the queue, like you really don't care about your honor points, just like, hey, just get us up against someone from our own server, please. That'd be kind of cool, actually. I would. That'd help, I think, a lot of people who maybe didn't care about the honor points but wanted some good matches against players from their server.
Yeah, it's sort of like the system they implemented in retail, where you can queue as either faction just to make it faster.
Wait, that's a thing in retail?
Yeah, there's like a mercenary mode where you can like tell a queue guy that you want to queue for a battleground, but you don't care what faction you're on, just because you want it to be a faster queue time.
I guess that's pretty neat.
I think that Classic players would definitely take issue with something like that. However, getting something to help minimize the queue times, I think, is definitely important.
Yeah, I think talking over it right now and thinking about it, I guess I'm more okay with cross-round battlegrounds, just because 45-minute queue times are pretty...
Well, and this is what happened back in Vanilla. We would queue for Battlegrounds immediately, and then we would be right out back in the world killing people. And we were notorious gankers for that time because we wanted rank 14, and we were like, hey, we're honor grinding all the time, whether we're in a battleground or not. So in order to alleviate that, cross-realm is sort of what you gotta do if they're trying to alleviate the fact that there's all these people in the world in the first place.
I wonder if they're going to make it so you have to stay by the battle master, because that's how it worked originally.
I think only one person, everybody else can be out, and one person's got to queue the group. But did that work all out in the world? Could you be on the other continent, or do you have to be in the city? Do we remember?
No, as long as you're in the group, you could be, once they implemented that.
Okay, yeah, but I do think it dumps you off in wherever you queued, though. So, like, if you were in Western Plaguelands ganking people at Chillwind Camp, and you got queued from Orgrimmar or Ironforge, you're going to be ported back to one of those cities.
Yeah, you would get dumped back to the city.
That's why, for the most part, when we were grinding Honor, we would always queue from, like, the Arathi portal or the Alterac portal, just so we could quickly get out, like, to other places.
Yeah, these little things are kind of fun little min-maxes about the world that I think matter a little bit more now that everybody's figured them all out. It's kind of cool just knowing, like, yeah, we're going to go get this strat right here where we're going to queue in a place that leaves us in the world and we can get right back to it in between queues. Just the little things that you grow out of necessity from playing the game are kind of neat. So we've have now people ranking, we have people getting honor, people are already on our server starting to piece together a system for who's going to be getting what ranks and everything like that. What is everybody's personal goal in terms of the ranking system? Myth, why don't you start us off there?
I'm just like casually PvPing at this point and grinding. I still need 91 arcane crystals for Thunder Fury, so
yeah, you've got some long-term goals that definitely have your attention.
But I'm hoping, my goal is to be mostly done with Arcanite come the release of Battlegrounds, and then I'm going to really start pushing. I'm sort of just giving it a wide berth right now, letting the people who are going to go really hard in the paint like take it away, and then once they're already ranked 12, ranked 13, I'll just tag along as like the rank 6 who's going to start his push later, once we can actually get into some queued PvP content. I don't know if I'll go further than rank 11. I have been working on my Darkspear rep because the Black War Raptor is my favorite mount in Classic. But we'll see. I mean, as a tank, I don't really need any of the gear past rank 11. I really don't.
Yeah, when I rolled Warrior, one of the things that was holding me back was, if I do this, I'm kind of committing myself to a rank 14 grind. I wanted to play Fury Warrior right from the start, so I knew that those axes were going to be particularly appealing to an orc like myself. How about you, Candice? What are your plans for ranking? Are you going for anything at all? What you doing?
So I've kind of got a busy schedule, right? But I would like to eventually maybe get 11 to 10 on at least one character. I'm thinking more Hunter than Shaman, strictly because it's actually been more fun to play the Hunter in the little bit I've done.
Yeah, I'm in the same situation as you where I had the Warrior and the Mage, and there's a lot of cool things that mages can do in PvP where I'm like, man, I wish I could be on my Mage at times and do some of that stuff and then just give those points to the Warrior.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's weird, right? Because like that's our main that we've been playing for like 2 months now at this point. Definitely has way better, but it's just it doesn't even matter. It's like, what are you enjoying more, I guess? And that's always the point of WoW, right? Have fun.
Well, and I think that by the time we get to Battlegrounds, I'm going to be really happy that I'm Warrior. I love those skirmishes. It's just when we get into those long-range battles, there's not much melee can do, and I think a lot of melee are kind of avoiding places like Terran Mill and all of that because there's just nothing there for you. It's rough. How about you, Copistar? What are your plans for ranking?
I mean, ideally, in a perfect world, I'd love to get rank 14, but in a more realistic sense, I'd really be happy with 11 or 12. I'd really like to initially, and then maybe once, you know, all the serious business PvPers get 14, maybe I can push my way into it. But I definitely don't plan on being one of the, like, you know, first 10, 20 rank 14s.
Yeah, one thing that I've definitely noticed from basically every guild, we were in a meeting earlier just about kind of like a coalition of the guilds and what's ever going to be happening with ranking, and there's a lot of people that were talking the talk before ranking came out, and there's a lot less people actually walking the walk, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to kind of hang back and wait for it to chill out a little bit. These next 3 months for the people that want rank 14 are going to be particularly grueling, and all you got to do is get there once. So if you have it in your mind but you don't necessarily think you can commit right away, like, you know, just rank up casually and then see what that system is doing once it's a little more established, because nothing is set in stone yet. There's a lot of things are going to change in the next 3 months. How about you, Micaiah? What are your plans for ranking?
Well, I hit rank 6 back on my original priest, and I want to beat that, but I don't know how far I want to go. I'd probably want to get the mount, but honestly, I'm just going to be waiting until Battlegrounds come out, because there's no way I'd be able to grind it on a holy priest in my in the world.
It's particularly rough for healers and the smaller groups. I think a lot of the healers like the bigger groups because you can just kind of sit back, heal, get on a lot of aggro lists. When you're in the smaller groups, you're jumped on a lot, and you kind of have to hope that your warriors, your melee, are good at peeling off of you, they're coordinated, and they're not getting, leaving you behind. It's a little bit rougher, and that rub right there is sort of what's been going on a little bit in the small group versus the big group. You have the ranged classes want to get in the little bit larger group so they can take advantage of what they can do, and the melee don't really have much to do there, and there's a little bit of meeting in between, but I think that there's definitely different strategies to the playstyles of the classes.
Yeah, I definitely have a mage alt who isn't 60 but is almost 57, and they've just got so much more survivability that it honestly just makes more sense to try and rank up on my mage in world PvP than my...
Well, in this phase, the little bit that I've played on my mage so far, I've been on my warrior primarily, but the little bit I have played with my mage has been absolutely fun. There's so many cool tricks that you can do. You have a lot of survivability, and you just cause a lot of problems for the other team that just create opportunities for the rest of your group. So it's definitely a fun class to play in this phase for sure.
It's the same thing for Hunter. Like with my shaman, I'm healing, right? And I just get jumped. And it doesn't matter if I'm with some really good DPS. As soon as someone gets on me, I almost don't have an out.
Yeah,
but on my Hunter, I can feign death, I can scatter shot, I have traps that I keep in front of me, and I'm able to Viper sting people. It's actually great.
I can count on one hand the amount of 1v1 matches I've had in the world PvP versus how many times I've just been focused down because
It's actually been kind of interesting. I've had the opposite experience with 1v1s after Honor came out. I was getting absolutely brutalized as a Fury Warrior out in the world. I was hating my life whenever I encountered PvP, and I thought I was going to be getting a lot more of the same. But I've actually gotten some very favorable moments 1v1ing as an arms warrior, and there's definitely a difference. I'm definitely more intimidating as arms, but there's been some surprising battles that I've had that I thought I was going to lose for sure, and it just worked out. So that little bit of an edge that you give yourself in the PvP spec, and it can really change the experience that you get out in the world. And now that we're getting more people that are specifically designed to lock people up, get the most damage in, make sure that you can't heal, it's making it a lot more difficult too for the people that aren't prepared for that. All right, so we've got the ranking system out. Honor system is in full swing. We have phase 2 coming out. We haven't seen all of the features of phase 2 yet, so there's been a little bit. I thought all of phase 2 was coming out on the 12th. It seems like it's been a little bit murkier than that. Haven't seen the key ring yet. Anything else missing so far?
There's a blue post about the key ring. They said it's coming out the first patch of next year. Not sure when that's going to be, but they said they were just fixing a bug in its implementation.
Yeah, that's a very minor one, but I think for a lot of us that were holding lots of materials and things, Myth, you've seen what my bank situation, my bag situation looks like. A key ring would be a welcome addition.
Oh yeah, I mean as the main tank and as a tank with every key in the game currently, I feel the pain. I carry around 6 to 8 keys at all times. And I know that I can't put something like the Ring of Binding in the key ring, but at the very least it'd be nice to be able to carry around the keys I do have without having to take up an excessive amount of bag space.
Or even just your bank space too. I mean, thankfully the Horde have a Lionheart helm pattern now. That was really killing my bank space for months, but bank space is expensive and it's very limited in this game unless you're going to do a lot of alts. But if you're getting to the point where you have a lot of soulbound stuff, consumables and things that you keep, gear that you want to have switched out, and keys, it does kind of poke into that space. So with that being said, we don't know when Phase 3 is going to be announced. It probably is going to be a little bit sooner than we were initially thinking. What has the server economy done, and what's the faction balance looking like? Has things changed out in the world? I know it felt on our server like the Alliance were a lot more active in Phase 1. The Horde have definitely come out, and the economy has definitely changed. What have you guys have experienced?
Just basic things that were very cheap before. Like, speaking from a rogue's perspective, Fade Leaf used to be like 10 silver each. It was nothing. And just since Phase 2's been launched, it's launched up to, I think today was 60 silver each. Just that's what I've noticed. Like, small things that really, like consumables that a lot of people are really gonna need.
I think the biggest increase I've seen since this phase change was Mountain Silver Sage going from 5 to 6 gold a stack to almost 20 gold a stack horde side. It's absolutely insane.
I had so much for so long, and then once I went through it, and there's no more layering. It's a lot more difficult to come by some of these herbs now. I've heard rumors that some of these spawn times have been increased. I don't know that for sure, but even with that, there's so many people out in the world that nodes are they're not out there, and it's really driving the prices.
Well, on the flip side of that, Grom's Blood has tanked. Before Dire Maul, which I know was obviously before Phase 2, but before Dire Maul was out, Grom's Blood was almost a gold per herb. It was an incredible way to make money, and it's dropped down. You can get I purchased a stack of Grom's Blood the other day for 3 gold.
Yeah, I remember looking at those as 20 gold per stack or more. That's if it wasn't a raid night even, and it just completely... The addition of Dire Maul changed the game, and I would say every single phase we're going to see a little bit of a change in the world. We saw a complete shift from Phase 1 to 2, and Phase 2 to 3 is going to give, another shift, and there's going to be several shifts, I think, within this phase, just from an economy standpoint, from a ranking standpoint, what's working and where people go.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as right now is concerned, investing in Black Lotus and Arcane Crystals is going to be solid. Arcane Crystals right now are sitting average about 50 gold per horde side on Grobbulus, and any purchase of those sub 50 gold is a solid long-term investment, because they're only going to go up when Blackwing Lair comes out and guilds start needing them for Thunder Fury. You need 100 bars, and if guilds aren't preparing right now for their tanks to get these bindings, when a second binding drops for, a random guild, and they already have the 10 Elementium ore from BWL, they're going to say, okay, well, we need 100 bars. That's an insane, immediate need, and I anticipate the cost of Arcane Crystals spiking to almost 100 gold per 3 to 4 weeks after Blackwing Lair launches.
When we saw a big, total shift, almost even the night before, I don't even think they waited until Phase 2. Free action potions, anything that got used in PvP skyrocketed right away. And when Phase 3 hits, we get Blackwing Lair, we get Battleground. A lot of those same things are going to do the same thing. So whatever your farm is, whatever your way to make money is, or your speculative way, definitely keep an eye on that and just get that extra bank alt going and start getting a stash. I know one of our guild mates has been speculatively getting Heart of Fires, Elemental Earths, and all of that for months, and that's going to be a 10,000 gold payday one day or more.
Well, the other thing too to consider is that gold loses value over time. The more gold your character has, the less actual wealth you have. You need to be investing in things that are going to be going up over time, so that when you do need liquid to purchase something, you can turn around and sell part of what you've invested in to make that faster.
A lot of people asked me how I got my epic mount so early, and it was because I kept everything in herbs. I never sold any of my herbs early. I just let all of that stuff build up, and when I got to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'd like an epic mount, I just sold off stuff. And if you're able to liquidate that way, it can really make an impact.
I've been trying to farm free action potions because I've got fishing and herbalism, but usually I would go up and down the Baron's Coast looking for blackmouth pools, but honestly it just seems faster to go to what's it called, the place in Desolus, Shadowprey Village, and just farm around there, because you can catch blackmouth oil or blackmouth fish just from the random fishing without having to need a pool.
And that's another one that has skyrocketed. I was trying to make those the other day for PvP reasons, and I was not liking the price I was seeing. So You know, it's that's a free action potion, Regent, so if that's one of your grinds, that's a good one to get on right now. Anything else in terms of what we've seen change in our server economy, just the world itself so far in Phase 2?
Once layering was gone, the price of gatherables just went up because there's so many people on the server. It's just impossible to try and find.
I'd actually really be curious to know what some of the servers like Firalina, Harad, Whitemane, some of these really overpopulated, maybe you could even say, servers that really had layering up until the day before Phase 2, it seemed like. Those must be even more ridiculous in terms of the price. So kind of use those as a guide of where this could go. If you do have any eye on those servers, the more scarce things become, the more it kind of trends in that direction. So it's a good first look at it. Before we wrap up today, anything else anybody has noticed about the world and how it has changed now that we've hit Phase 2, or anything that they think we should be preparing for in Phase 3?
I feel like there's a lot more camaraderie on the Horde side as opposed to a few weeks ago, like a month ago. You kind of saw a lot of chirping in world chat against other guilds, and now that Phase 2's kind of dropped, everybody's kind of come together and been like, hey, you know, if you're serious about PvP, let's put all that petty shit behind us and let's work together. Let's be, you know, we want to beat the Alliance, we want to be the best on the server.
And
I think
it's
it's
kind of nice to see too.
Honestly, whatever keeps the Alliance from camping the DM road is fine. But
I would say for those who have not followed on Grobbulus too much, we got off to a little bit of a drama-filled start, but I think that with the coming of Phase 2, it's definitely given a lot of opportunity to amend some of those roads, and hopefully we can really see the Horde band together. I know for the earlier phases, the Alliance really came out big in organizing the city raids, and there was a feeling that we weren't going to come out for World PvP, and I feel that that has pretty much universally changed. I guess we were too busy farming for this phase to get in on that, huh, guys?
It seems like it, I would guess.
I was kind of big on trying to raid a city or two before we hit this phase. It's a different ball game now that there's civilians in the game. People's attitudes about going into cities is going to change a lot, but it's definitely kind of a fun experience if you haven't raided a city to get to do that. So maybe if you're done with your honor grind and we get to some people getting to the honor grind, maybe we'll get back to that one day.
Yeah, there was a person who hit rank 14 on my old server. He bought all of his pieces, and then the same week that he was rank 14, he just farmed himself back down to rank 0 on dishonorable kill.
Oh my god.
It was pretty funny.
It's a great feeling, though, once you do hit that moment where you don't have to care about that anymore. Your weapons are secured, so just enjoy it. Although I would want to hang around with that high warlord tag. I held on to my warlord tag proudly for as long as I could.
aside from having to keep up the honor to keep it, does it just decay?
So if you don't keep up your rank, you'll decay each week, so you've got to at least cover that amount, and the higher level that you get into the ranking system, the more severe that decay is going to get. So it really penalizes the players that go deep and then don't finish if they're trying to, and it's kind of hard to climb your way back into it too. You have to do it all over again. I would say this is the closest thing that we have to an old school MMO grind. For a lot of players that played vanilla first and then went on to retail, they have a lot of feelings of classic WoW being very, very difficult, very, very unforgiving. But I came from EverQuest, which was about 100 times less forgiving than this game, and without a doubt, the ranking system holds a candle to any system that was in EverQuest. You know, there was EXP decay on death, and you know, you could get your corpse camped by mobs and all kinds of hideous things in that game.
Epic items, or epic quests, my goodness, some of the classes in that game just did not have a good time with.
And you really did need a large raid guild to accomplish any of those. So if you didn't have 40 people that wanted you to have that item, you weren't getting it either. So there was no soloing any of the cool stuff in that game. So just having that as an option now is, to me, will always feel like the easier path. Although I will say this, the rank 14 grind is as severe as any. So if you are bent on going for that, you're going to be in for some work. So just know what you're in for.
I gotta say, I've come from games like Final Fantasy, where you're just farming the best weapons for your class, or for your characters, and having tried the PvP grind back on vanilla, where I only hit rank 6, I'm interested to see how much is changed, where I can actually put in the time to try and rank up and get higher than I was before.
I would say casually till 9 is pretty obtainable for most, especially with people that are in good Battlegrounds groups and things like that. It's going to be a little bit easier of a ride for you. And I imagine that with the amount of people that are ranking in our guild, we're going to have some groups that are going to want some healers. So it should be pretty obtainable for most that have a situation where they can get into that. Anything beyond like that, it doesn't matter what guild you're in. It doesn't matter how many good people you play with. It's just hard.
Yeah, it is literally just a time investment.
It really is. But there is a silver lining that you've got all these people going super, super hard right now, trying to show themselves. If you're looking to rank up, it's going to get so much easier that it's almost a different grind. Once the people who want to be out ahead are ahead, it will calm down a lot.
And this is why you do want your server to establish some sort of an honor ranking system. If you have people on your server that are willing to do this, you want to at least keep an ear on the ground with that group, because it could make your life so much better down the road. You don't want to have to share your account with multiple people in your guild in order to get rank 14 one day. It's not secure, it's not ideal, and it's a pain in the ass for everybody involved, but it has come to that for some rank 14 grinds where people don't collaborate. So do be willing to collaborate with people that maybe you didn't get along with so much in phase 1 and reap the benefits in phase 2 and beyond, because everybody came to the idea, oh yeah, I don't want to play this game for 18 hours a day for the next 3 months.
Yeah, once honestly the dust settles a few weeks from now and we actually see, who's rank 10 plus and who's really pushing for rank 14 early, one of the things that I expect we'll see is sort of a collaboration between the top gainers for each faction, to say, okay, well, I have this amount of time, so I'll be the first person to get it. And because it's really hard to, I don't know with how server populations work now, but back in Classic, when the servers were much smaller, there were really only 1 or 2 rank 14 people at a time.
Yeah, back in my server in vanilla, we controlled about the first 20 to 25 rank 14s on our server, and we were getting about 2, maybe 3 on a really good week, and we slotted it out. And then once everybody got it, we started slotting people into the system and everything, because we were the ones that had the PvP time commitment. But it's, a lot different now. There's so many more people. I've heard as many as 20 or 30, if you think, 10 times the population size now, 20 or 30 high warlords, or, I can't think of the Grand Marshals.
Grand Marshal.
Yeah, Grand Marshals per week might be obtainable with the amount of people.
And that's my thought. When the player base on a server is this large, I think people are going to be very happily surprised when they see themselves jumping as many ranks as they are, because there is that many people you're going to be competing with. There just is.
Well, because it's percent based, right? Like it's the exact same way that they do Gladiator in the arena system. It's what percentage of the people who gained this percentage, and obviously there's an exact number on who's the highest, but if they do like the top 0.5% on a server with 36,000 people, it's going to be a lot more than on a server with 5,000 people.
So it'll be very interesting to see how the ranking system progresses and how many people are getting rank 4 that first week out, how many people are getting 3, and I'm especially curious to see if we do hit numbers like 20 or even 30 high warlords per week, because that would be pretty big, but it would be consistent with the amount of people that we see per server right now and what the plans are. So I've got my fingers crossed for something like that, because I think it will also help with the collaborations and add a little bit more of a layer of security for the people that were grinding really hard.
Yeah, I mean it's a razor's edge that they need to balance. It needs to be obtainable for the masses. It can't be so few that it's unrealistic. But at the same time, I mean, it is still something that's granting basically better than raid gear for tier 2. So it needs to be a real achievement to obtain it as well.
Yeah, and I remember on our Horde guild back in vanilla that went through the ranking system, we did ranking before we even entered Molten Core, and it made Molten Core so easy. We had already done it before, so we knew all the fights, but just the fact that we had this very good DPS gear for the time, and we weren't even really aware of, you know, the advanced itemization now, really changed the way that we cruise through Molten Core and BWL, and that will definitely be the case for the people that have that gear this time around as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the world record Molten Core on a private server was completed by all, it was a full melee cleave, 7 parties, of all ranking, like, Warlord or High Warlord rogues and warriors.
I mean, our rogues and warriors were always topping our meters with those rank 14 weapons back then. It didn't really happen until, like, you know, later on that we started seeing some higher mage damage, you know, in certain fights and everything like that. But for really the foreseeable future, there's going to be a lot of fights coming up in these next phases too, that you really do want some warriors with some heavy weapons to pound in that damage, because same thing with rogues, because melee DPS early on in vanilla is, you know, it gives some big returns.
Especially with Wind Fury Totem.
Love that Wind Fury Totem. All right, so with that being said, we've covered quite a bit of what's happened in Phase 1, Phase 2, and what's to happen in Phase 3. Do we have any final thoughts before we finish up today?
Oh, I guess I can start. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This is obviously, we hope that this can turn into something that grows with us. If you guys have any thoughts or suggestions, we're always happy to read through those. So please just post them down below, or we'll probably come up with some way for you to reach out to us. And yeah, this is Mythoclass, and we'll talk to you next time.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody who joined us. I want to thank Copistar, Micaiah, and Candice for joining as well. And you can expect to hear from them and some other members of Mastermind. We're also hoping to do some interviews within the WoW community and potentially beyond, cover some interesting news that's related to Blizzard and World of Warcraft, as well as things that are happening that are going to be relevant information and just some cool stuff that we cover, as well as some giveaways. By the way, I do have a giveaway coming up on my stream. I'm going to be doing it at the end of Molten Core on our guild's alt raid. I'll be giving away an original WoW Atlas. It is unopened, and it's just a cool little map book. It has a lot of the original art, fully detailed stuff. It was one of the original pieces that came with Vanilla WoW, and it is going to be given away at the end of Molten Core on my stream, so go ahead and check that out. And we will also have some more ways for you to reach out to us as the show goes on and we get that figured out. But do look for about a once a week upload from us, and we will have different things like comments in YouTube to get in contact with us, and then more ways to reach out to us as well. All right, well, thank you everybody for listening. This was a great time, and I hope to hear from all of you out in the YouTube comments. And thank you again, everybody from Mastermind who joined me today, and I will see you guys next time.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yep, enjoyed myself now.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you all next time.
Bye bye.